What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to put this in the top of the show. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com to get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope you enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. There's going to be a graphic here. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, welcome to the program. Quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It's my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with a friend and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Veronica Garza. What's up?
What's up? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
Hell yeah. I didn't know I was part of this experimental episode.
Oh, yeah. This is the first time we've ever done it. So normally we record at Gotham, but happenstance, most comics have day jobs.
That's true.
And Gotham also does day job hours, which is a wildly inconvenient sometimes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Okay, I accept that.
So when we were messaging, so Drew Tessier introduced us via Instagram. He was like, hey, he did the show. And then it was so weird because I've known Drew for a few years now.
Same, yeah.
And as soon as he did the show, he was like, I know all these sober comics you have to have on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been talking about this with you for 2 years. And then he wanted to come on first, though, and feel it out.
Right, yeah.
And now I feel bad because he came in and it was the studio and the whole thing. And then you were like, yeah, I'll come on. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have to do it at my apartment.
Oh, I don't care. I'm always I don't know. It helps with my sobriety, talking about it. I mean, I'm sure you get that.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the show.
And it's fun to reminisce on the things because, every now and then I'll forget or I'll just now realize, oh, I did this. That's part of sobriety, I guess. All the more sober I become, the memories that kind of come through.
I say it all the time. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Hook with Robin Williams.
Oh, I love Hook.
So in Hook, there's this thing where when you leave Neverland, you forget about it.
That's such the best comparison.
I say that in meetings all the time. I go, it's Neverland. You forget.
Oh my gosh, I love this comparison so much.
Absolutely. I compare my sobriety or my alcoholism to Neverland all the time because the further you get away from it, the more you forget about it.
I'm sharing this in AA.
And then,
I'm telling this on my Friday meeting.
It's fucking Neverland.
It's so true.
Before we get too far into it, plug everything up front. Social media, this will come out in a couple weeks. So anything you have coming up, where people can find you, that whole thing.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Veronica Garza. Find me on Instagram at Veros_got_jokes or look up Veronica Garza comedian New York. You can look that up on Google and all my stuff will plug or just should show up. On Twitter, I'm Veros_broke. That should change though, because I got way more money now that I stopped drinking. Listen, that's one of the other upsides.
That's something I wanted to ask you. So this is something weird that my family does. They go, well, you don't drink anymore. You should have all this money. But when I was really bad in my alcoholism, I was only spending $60 every few days. I'd get a handle of vodka and a pack of cigarettes. And it was $30 because I was in Florida. It was $30 out the door.
Oh, it was in Florida.
Yeah.
See, no.
And so people are like, oh, you should have all this money. I go, how much money did you think I was spending?
Oh, don't do the math. I did the math. I could have a house.
Oh, really?
Oh, I could have
so you
two
were
houses.
A go-out party drinker.
I was, once, God bless Stacy, who went to University of Kansas with me, because she's the one who taught me about opening up a tab. And once I just knew you bring the amount of cash with you to a bar, and that's what you spend. And then if you can find an ATM, and you're done. So I also didn't drink that much in college.
Yeah.
And then I found out, you just leave your card with the bartender, and they tab it at the end of the night.
You can just get as much as you want.
That changed everything.
That's insane to me because I've worked in restaurants my whole life, so I kind of knew about that stuff, but I was never, I shouldn't say never because only a Sith deals in absolutes, but I was not a big go out, get drunk with everybody guy, especially my alcoholism, because people would just annoy me. And I'm such a movie TV guy. I wanted to just come home, watch In fact, when me and my ex-fiance were still sharing a Netflix account, she would call me because this is after I went to rehab, and then I'd be sober and then fall off. And then so this is when I was going in and out. So at first it was just out, and then it was in, and then once I relapsed, it was boom, 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 boom.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
she would call me or text me and be like, what's going on? Because we had a shared Netflix account. So she could tell I was drinking by the movies I was watching.
My younger brother would sometimes message me like randomly.
Yeah.
There's some movie, like I'm a lesbian, but like lesbian movies are so bad. And there was this one, my younger brother just texted me once, and it was like 2 a.m. He's like, Jenny's Wedding? Really, dude? And it's a horrible lesbian movie with like Katherine Heigl and Alexis Bledel. It's so bad.
Is it?
But my younger brother's like, really, dude?
Like, this is what we're doing? Yeah, it was.
And I was like, only drunk high me would watch that.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and there are certain things that I've seen like a million times, but there's certain, and I was trying to do this on stage, but I think it was coming across as too sad. But there are certain like movies and stuff or TV shows that I like, the lines were so good, I'd be like, fucking yeah, and I'd do a shot to it.
Oh, yeah. I would get, like, oh, that's so embarrassing.
I would joke all the time that I was like, I'm a social drinker, but when I say social drinker, I mean like I would put on Jersey Shore and I would drink with the boys.
Yes, GTL with that.
Yeah, and I'd like be running around my room like fucking Cavs here.
Yeah, with your white tee. I get it.
And I'd
get
say
it.
that on stage, and people are just like, "Oh," and I'm like, "No, that's the visual's hilarious."
I get it. No, I would do that. So I did that more in COVID.
Okay.
But before that, I was like out every night because part is comedy, and just like I moved to New York City.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. When did you start comedy? When did you get here?
Cool,
the whole thing.
I'm originally from Dallas,
Okay.
Texas, and I started comedy there. Oh man, let's see. The first time I touched a mic had to have been, I was 26 years old. I'll be 40 this year, so it's like 14 years ago. What's the math on
14.
that? Yeah, like 2012, 13. I don't.
Oh, 14 from now would be 2009.
2009. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah. 2009, 2010 is when I first touched a mic. Yeah, that's right.
Me too.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. And then I stayed in the scene. Like I did improv before that, and one of the teachers there, she's the one who started Dallas Comedy House, Amanda Austin. She's great. But
Shouts out.
Yeah, definitely a shout out. But she mentioned she saw me writing stuff with a notebook down because I would go on runs and I would kind of like write stuff down and I would get it. And so she was like, that's stand up. You may want to try that. So I just kind of kept it in the back of my head, and then finally I asked questions, and I was like, one day I just did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Oh,
and
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I was so horrible. Like I remember trying to get 3 minutes together.
Oh my God, it was so bad. I tell people this all the time. Because I started in 2009 after football, but I was drunk from like 2009, pretty much. And on Joe's episode, this is the name of Joe List's episode, but I was either drinking, drunk, or hungover.
Yeah.
And it was literally, that was my life from 2009 until I went to rehab in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
So I say I started in 2009 because I did. I got on stage,
yeah.
I was doing open mics, but it was like once every couple of weeks. And my material, I thought I was going to be like, because I played college football, and I'm not a bro-y bro. Like I was raised by women. I'm more effeminate than most of the women that I know.
Right.
But I thought I was going to be like a bro-down comic.
Yeah.
So it was so egregious and so offensive.
Because you're trying to be this thing, and that's not you.
And I could not find my voice for the life. It took me 10 years to find my voice, but
I didn't figure mine out till like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
it takes forever.
And I know this is a big thing, but like most comics, and I know Segura talks about this, his first like few years in comedy, he was just doing a Chris Rock impression.
Yeah.
And like for me, I was doing like a more like gross version, but with like Dane Cook mannerisms, because Dane was the reason I got into stand-up.
And they said that it is a good way to start, because you don't steal their jokes, but you kind of do what they do to learn to be on stage. The style, because I have certain jokes that they're cadences of different comics I like.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's great. And I'm like, oh, that's my homage to this, or watching this special. Oh, that's how I want to tell this joke, but it's not. Someone isn't going to go, hey, that's Dion Cole's joke. You know what I mean?
There's certain lines, like when I did the one-man show, Dan Soder has a hilarious joke, and in the joke, he literally says the line, "We're going to be loud about it." And he says it just like that. Yeah. And I took that line because it was so funny to me, and as like an homage, I plugged it into the one-man show.
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
I don't like do the joke, or it's just a line. I was loud about it, but I said it just like that in the show. I go, and I was loud about it. And so for anybody who knows, they're kind of like, all right, I see what you did there.
Yeah, like it's so funny. And it's funny when you tell the joke about like that you kind of took that style from in front of the comic. I'll tell them later. Like one of them, like the only person like that I know personally that I've had that happen. We were in the same show, was Jay Jordan.
Okay.
And I told him, I was like, hey, and I said in the middle, I was like, Jay, isn't that joke like your one joke? He's like, yeah. I go, what do you think? He's like, I like it. I was like, me too. I knew
it's just like mine.
No one has told me, hey, that's Jay, because it's similar in some sense, and like watching him help me realize how I wanted to finish or like, you know, get that joke to be funny, basically.
Absolutely.
And so but that was, unless you don't, if you don't know yourself, it's so hard to be on stage.
And who knows? And most of us start in our 20s. Like, who knows?
I didn't figure myself. And I was in Dallas, and I did comedy there, and it was more like big fish, small pond. And the people who were there, unfortunately, that were running it then are still running it now. And it's kind of nice to know I got out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
so when did you come to the city?
Was that 2011?
Did you come here for comedy?
No.
Okay.
Because this is
plot twist.
Me reflecting now, like, you know, you were saying, what'd you say the episode, the Joe List episode's called? I was either drunk,
drinking, or hungover. Yeah.
That was me for like 17 years until I like found sobriety. But in Dallas, that was definitely, there was a point, like one of the, the peaks of my alcoholism. You know how the
peaks and valleys.
So there was a peak there, and it was definitely interfering with my my professional life being like I work in advertising.
Okay.
And so I just was, I don't know how I was driving to work, because I would wake up still drunk, like, unfortunately. You know how that is. Or
well, and I talk about it all the time. I had to have those little airplane minis in my center console because I would get up and I would do shots for breakfast because I wouldn't be able to stop shaking. And then I'd get in my car, and if I would start getting the tremors again, or if I was just like feeling like shit, I would pull the little airplane minis out and drink those on my way to work.
Oh, that would be me at lunch. Because
I was like, I couldn't function.
It was always like my right hand. I would see it
it's
shake.
Always the
and
right
I was
one.
Like, it is, right? And I was like, oh, this
You're
is
right-handed?
so weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was like, oh, this will be fine. But, you know, in retrospect, it's like, you dumb bitch.
I would walk when I was working at the night job. So for a long time in my alcoholism, like 5 years, I worked at a breakfast place, which was perfect because I'd get off at 2. I'd go over, like, there was an ale house across the street. So I just got done saying, like, I don't drink at bars, but we would, a lot of times after work, we'd go over there and have like a drink or two because they had Rumpelman shots for like $5. So I'd go do 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah.
And then I'd drive home. And then I would be passed out by like 10. So the fact that I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. wasn't a huge deal because I'd be passed out at 10.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I'd get up at 5, but it was so crazy because like that was just my life, like just waking up drunk. Or like I'd wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and be like, well, I've got a few hours. Like I'll do a couple more shots, watch a show, and then I'll pass out for another hour. Then I'll go into work.
I don't get how I did, like, because I would be just like on benders. Like, you don't understand.
If I get like a cold now, I'm like, I'm out. I can't do anything.
Yeah,
I'm like,
getting up at 7 a.m. I'm like, why?
Dying.
And I'm just like, how you're like, I was weekend at Bernie's like for 17 years, like legit. That's it right there. And I don't understand how I did it. But anyway, like that caused me to basically, I lost a whole bunch of money for like the company I was working for, and they fired me. And someone was like, my best friend at the time, well, she's still my best friend.
Did you try to pull the card when they fired you? Where you're like, I'm not doing well, I'm sick. Like
I tried to do some stuff, and they were not hearing it. Yeah, I had lost, I think, like $170K, like, which isn't a lot.
Well,
now
for
but
an
it's not
advertising
for me for advertising. And I was like, but also they were just horrible people. And I'm like, I found a new job in New York City. Like when I moved here, I found a job like in 3 months for doing the same thing at one of the bigger, like a huge agency, because it's New York City.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because they want you to party. They want you to black out. Like they.
Oh really?
Oh
it's
yeah.
Like the culture.
We would rage. Like I blacked out at the holiday party like that first year there.
Yeah.
And I had this really cool like boss from Spain, and I was on the Mexico team, so it was all like these like they were all cute Latin women, and they purposely hired like that. But that like January, because we had like 2 weeks off because of like Christmas,
the holidays. Yeah.
And I get back and my boss was like, "Hey, I heard someone had fun at the holiday party," and I was like, "Yeah," and I thought anything else. He's like, "All right."
Oh, that was it.
That was it. Europeans and
Europeans,
guys. He did not care. He's like, as long as you get your work done, I don't care. But
I've run into both sides of that because working in restaurants, it's similar where like you could get like a cool boss and they're like, yeah, I don't care. You're better with your tables if you come in drunk. Like I don't give a shit as long as you don't get any complaints.
Yeah.
But the second you start getting complaints, then it's a problem. Like I've had to get sent home a couple times because I was too drunk and I like forgot which tables I had or forgot to put in orders and stuff. And then they sent me home. But then I've had it on the flip side where you have like a very rigid manager or a boss, and they're just like they're like, "Are you hungover? Not even drunk. Are you hungover?" And you're like, "Yeah, I partied last night." And they go, "You need to go home and figure this out." And I'm like, "All right, nerd.
Yeah.
Like fuck you."
I will say the most sales I ever had. I also worked at a running store here in the city.
Yeah.
And the day that I've had my highest sales, I went to work cooked out.
Yeah.
And my boss was like, he goes, I think this is the first time I've ever seen you sell this much. And he's like, what is it? And I was like, cocaine. I'm ready to help everybody.
Everyone.
Like, what, you didn't get drunk last night? I was like, no, I got high instead. Like,
starting a business with all of these people.
I made decisions. Like, I'm making great decisions. It was so funny. But I left that agency and went to a different agency that partied even more. Like,
in New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
Are you still doing comedy when you get here?
not yet. So
Okay.
my second week, I went to. I thought about it because I was like, oh, I was doing okay in Dallas.
Yeah.
No one knows me here. I'll be all right. My second week, I signed up for. It was a Monday, like 4 p.m. mic at
Okay.
Eastville, like old Eastville on
Yeah,
4th
yeah.
Street. Like, see, people don't know about that, right?
Nope.
Listen. And I went, and it was absolute silence, crickets. Like, it was so bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I love that pain. Like,
Yeah.
I you know what I mean? Like, you figure
That's
that
what I
shit
say
out.
about the pair all the time.
I
People
love it.
like I know a lot of comics who are passed at certain places, but they'll try new material at the open mics because they don't want to risk being unbassed.
Exactly.
And they're so they'll do open mics a lot, which is awesome, and I encourage it. That's what I think I'm always gonna do open mics until I'm
love
just
it.
so busy. Like Jared Waters said this. He goes, I did mics until I was so busy I couldn't do mics anymore.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
That's what I say. If I'm too like
like
sometimes
if
I'll
I,
miss a mic.
yeah, like if
I'm booked.
if I'm not, but he's like, have you seen what he posts?
Oh, yeah,
he's doing
he's
like
all the time. He's
10
doing
shows
3
at
shows
night,
a
and
day,
I'm like,
yeah.
what the fuck?
And that's exactly it. Like, I love going to a mic.
Yeah,
like,
it's my favorite because that's silence, and the pair is
Yeah.
probably the best one for that. And I say the best with no sense of like sarcasm. You have to get comfortable in the silence.
You know how much I love this. Like,
Yeah.
and I tell all these new comics, I'm like, oh, I haven't been to that mic, and they'll go, oh, you should. It's really supportive. I go, okay, and then I'll ask them about
Yeah,
a
I
mic.
don't-
I'll ask them about a mic, and they're like, oh, that mic's so hard. No one laughs. Everyone's on their phone, and all I'm thinking is, oh, I'm gonna go to that mic if
Yeah.
I have a chance.
Let's
and I'll
fucking do
tell
it.
them, I'm like, let's go. They go, I go, because you want to bomb there. You want to feel uncomfortable there. You want to figure out how to like make it work there.
How to
'Cause if-
pivot, how to get
how
out
to
of
get
it.
out
yeah.
of that, how to sit in that and see what happens, because what happens is you get so good at being in that uncomfortable situation there. By the time you have it on stage, you just get
Well,
out
and
of
in
it
my
and crush
experience-
it.
In my experience, no amount of, I shouldn't say like at all, but I have not experienced a bomb on a real show like I've like experienced a bomb at an open mic.
Yeah, right.
So it's like you said, it's like you go through all, and that's why like in football, because I played football most of my adult life. So that was the whole thing, was like you do 2-a-days, you fucking practice like crazy, because then in the game it's just second nature. Like
Yep.
it's never going to be as hard in the game as it is during practice.
And you don't realize it either.
And
how
that's the
much
same
you
thing with
wiggle out
comedy.
of
It's
it.
never as hard during doing a real show, unless, like, I mean, it sometimes it is.
Sometimes
but,
it just sucks.
yeah, sometimes the audience doesn't get you. Sometimes, like, I've done shows where it's a
nice.
lot of hot, well-adjusted, like Brooklynites, and their parents are paying all their bills.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and I'm like,
that's-
oh, I'll do dark stuff, and that's my fault. Like, I should have read the room. But
Yeah.
and I've torpedo shows before. I've talked to comics about this, where I've done a joke that's not very dark in my opinion, and some like people have groaned, and I go, oh, I'm bringing this whole thing down now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, now we're gonna do the suicide. Now we're gonna do the
Yeah.
heroin overdoses.
Yeah,
now
it's
we're gonna
on.
do those jokes.
It's on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
You want to groan at this? Like, I'll give you something to groan about.
You don't like me. You know what? I want you to hate me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know you.
Exactly.
I give 0 fucks.
I literally said that in
Zero
the show.
bucks.
The woman hosting, it was great. It was both sold out. She was like, go as dark as you want. And the first thing I opened with was dark. The first thing I opened with was dark, crickets. And I look in the back of the room. I go, thanks a lot. And everybody kind of chuckled. But I literally looked at the audience. I go, oh, wait, this is the last show. I'm the second to last comic of the night for this event. Like, I don't know any of you.
Nope,
Like,
I don't care.
I was like, I don't give a shit. And then everybody laughed and we were back on board. But I was
Oh.
just like, oh, yeah, I don't give a shit.
Oh, no, not at all. And one of the things I've noticed is whenever that stuff happens, I'm so much better of pulling myself out of it ever since I've gotten sober.
Yeah.
Like, drunk me bombing or buzz me on stage like bombing was a different thing. Like, on stage bombing sober, and yeah, it's humbling. Still the same feeling of absolute disgust. But
Yeah.
there's something about it that feels, I don't know, more intense in a good way.
Yeah.
That I'm able to process it better. By the time I'm on my way home, like, I go to sleep, I wake up the next day, I'm like, okay, that's done.
Well, and it's also, I find really the thing about being sober on stage that I find fascinating and actually really beneficial is the fact that I'm not panicking in like the drunken sense, where like a joke bombs and I'm like, well, fuck you guys, like you don't even fucking get it, man.
Nope.
Like it bombs
I'm never
and then it's the same thing where I'm like, all right, that didn't work. We got to get out of it. Here we go. Like my brain is like 3 or 4 steps ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Always present.
Yeah. And
Whereas
it's so
before
nice.
I would just scream at the audience. I remember I used to get drunk on stage in Oklahoma City. And I lived there for a couple of months with my cousin, the one who actually
How'd you
introduced
even
me
get
to
drunk there? Because it's like the alcohol level's even less, right?
Oh, is it?
The beer they sell there has less alcohol content.
Really?
Or alcohol like volume level percentage than its surrounding states. So
really?
I know people in Oklahoma that used to like go to Texas, buy beer and bring it back.
Bring it back. I'm a liquor guy. I never drink beer.
Yeah, so that's like,
it's my favorite. One of my favorite Kyle Kinane bits. But he's like, drinking beer is like driving down the interstate, and you're like, yeah, we'll get to our exit eventually. Drinking liquor is like, hey, do you guys want to take a spaceship?
that's exactly it.
Yeah,
I mean, I love vodka, so I get it. I get it.
That was my thing. But
Yeah.
I used to get so hammered, and then I'd be on stage at an open mic, and they'd be like, for 4 people at a bar, the Oklahoma City Thunder game's on, like the patrons are telling us to shut the fuck up, and they would be like lighting me, and I'd be like, fuck you, come up here and get me.
Yeah.
Like no one's getting me off this stage.
And
it was it was a
bad.
mess. And now I look back on that, and I'm like, oh, if I relapse, God willing, I won't, but if I relapse, I'm not touching a microphone.
I better not. Yeah, I was like, my thing is like, I better not like.
I'd burn everything down.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Everything.
And I was like, you would absolutely know that.
We have like a lot of listeners. Like I'd be like, fuck everything.
But
so you moved to the second agency.
Yeah. So
don't worry, I'll keep us on track.
I was at Eastville, and it just didn't go well. So I was like, well, I guess I suck.
Yeah.
And I didn't touch a mic for like another 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But what I did in that time is I moved here. I only knew like 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
So I started like my New York City life, and I started, going out and drinking and meeting people, your drunk friends that
were
you go out.
At the time, so you said you hit a peak in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, were you in a valley? Were you kind of keeping it under control a little bit? Were you like, when I get to New York, I'll be better? Because you said you get to the agency and it was party. But were you conscious about what happened in Dallas?
Yeah, I was conscious, but I wasn't addressing it. Like, I didn't think it was a problem because I was still in my 20s.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, you just drink a lot. And then there's this crazy thing. It's not crazy what happened. I don't know everything. Like when I drink, I black out.
Yeah.
And I noticed, as I got older, I would black out sooner because like I forget, is it Nikki Glaser says it, like she used to black out after 2 beers because her brain was like, I know where this is going. And it would just go. But I like my first night here, we went out, we're in the West Village, we're at 3 Sheets and taking Patron shots, and the next thing I know,
I don't know how that got such a good rap.
It's
when
not
we were younger.
good. I mean,
it's
I had
a
other
horrible tequila.
It's not good.
As someone who works in a nice steakhouse now, and we have nice liquors, whenever a guest has Patron, I always just go.
I was like, who told you about this?
Like,
someone told you. You think this is cool?
Yeah,
like,
because I remember when I was a kid, Patron was the thing.
Oh no, and I mean, I've had good tequila, and I'm like, that's not good tequila.
Yeah, it's plastic. It's garbage.
No, but I blacked out, one of my many blackouts, and when I came through, I was like fighting my best friend.
Oh, really? Like
just,
fighting?
Yeah, someone was trying to break at her place, and so it was kind of weird at that point because like what happened, that was part of my drinking, is I would get violent. There was a lot of anger, which of course is sadness. Look at us, man. Thank God we never met when we were drinking. You're like,
all this comes from somewhere, you know what I mean?
Exactly. But I was kind of cautious about my drinking, and then I got to the agency, and everyone was like, yeah, we all get drunk.
We party,
here. Yeah, so no worries. So, and I would like get into like, trouble and blackout drink on the weekends and like live my little New York City life, and that's just what I did.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Okay.
And it was fine.
So when did you, because you sent me a couple stories, so since it's kind of on the timeline anyway, when did you, like when you would black out or when you get in fights, did you ever get in trouble with the police? Was this while you were still, okay.
So that one bubble, the first one I told you about, definitely popped up during like my first year in New York City.
Okay, so this is all relevant.
Yeah, this is all relevant.
So good at this.
You're just on it, man. So, I was like, it was October. I got here in July. And then by October,
you said of 2012?
Yeah, 2012.
Okay,
2011 or 2012, one of those.
Either, yeah.
So, and I had a full-time job by October, but before that, I was just working every job possible. You know the deal, just like
freelance,
everything,
all that kind of stuff,
everything. Like I was just on a hustle because I didn't know anyone here, so I was giving out flyers on corners, 0 fucks, And I was at this,
barking before barking.
Yeah, exactly. It was a whole thing, but I I had this full-time job at this agency, and I'm like, I have friends there. I have friends. I'm working at the running store on weekends.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing comedy because I had already bombed and I thought I sucked.
Like,
so I'm just
out.
going out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I have money to like spend. So I'm just like drinking and going out. And then that December of this, like 6 months into being in New York City, I meet up with a friend from Texas. Well, I didn't really know him. We had gone out like twice. This is how long ago? This is when I was dating men too.
Oh,
this is
wow.
Yeah, so a lot of changes, man.
A lot has shifted.
Woo! Alcohol made me gay.
You want to hear the best part?
Yeah.
Drew said the same thing.
Tito's turned me into a lesbian.
He said Zima made me gay.
I could believe that. Smirnoff Ice.
Oh, God.
Gosh, that's what it did. That.
Is
But
it hacky if I make that the episode of your or the
Tito's
name of your
gay.
episode? Yeah.
No, I love it.
After what Drew said.
Yeah, do it. I love it so much. But what is it? So it was a
whole subset on this show.
It was
what alcohol made people gay.
It did. Oh, so it was a Sunday, and this guy, he was also from Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, let's watch the Cowboys game. So once again, at 3 Sheets. I know.
Did you live in the West Village? Were
No,
you near
I lived
there?
in Astoria.
Oh, God.
So I met up with him, and we're drinking. The Cowboys win.
Who were they playing? Do you remember?
I don't even fucking
God,
remember.
that
It
would've
was.
been great.
I can look it up. It was a December game, and they won. And so we're drinking shots, and then we go next door to Fat Black Pussycat.
Yep.
This is how long ago this was.
That
And-
wasn't owned by the seller then.
No.
No, it was
This
just
is it
Fat
was
Black,
just
yeah.
a shitty bar.
Yeah,
Horrible.
yeah.
Like I drank like vodka shots that night.
Out
And
of
I
the
used to-
plastic.
Oh, so bad. And see, here's the thing. When I did drink, I thought I didn't have a problem because I would pay for top shelf
Yeah.
liquor. I was like, no, I can't be drunk. I paid $12 for this
Yeah.
shot. Like, no,
I can't be an alcoholic because I can afford the good stuff.
That's
Yep.
exactly how I thought. Or at
Those
least
are like the majority of my guests that come into the restaurant.
Yeah. It's like,
Like,
oh, I
no,
drink the
dude.
good stuff. I drink the good stuff because I'll feel better in the morning. I was like, you've
Yeah.
had 7 of these.
You're not going to feel good at all.
No. And so we drank a shitload, and then we're trying to split a cab, drop a cab. Like, I'm going to Astoria. So
Yeah.
he was like, well, I was like, you just stay at my place, whatever. He's like, cool. And at this point, I knew that from like the West Village to Astoria at my place, it was like $22. $25. That's how cheap it was.
Yeah, I was
this
gonna
was
say.
yellow cabs. This was before Lyft and Uber. And
Those were the days.
yeah, but we're in the cab, and the cab driver takes a scenic route, and we're in the like East Village.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is bullshit. Pull over. And I was like, I'm not paying you because it was already like $18. And I was like, you're gonna.
And you're not even across into
No,
Queens.
no. So I was like, this is bullshit. And the cab driver and I had to words. Yeah, and I said some shit. He said some shit, and I was like, fuck this. And I just like walked out of the cab as it was parked, and he pushed me when he came out.
Oh,
and
shit.
He pushed me. And I remember I hit like this pizza. There was a pizza place there, and I hit the wall. I don't even really remember that. But
Yeah.
then this guy that I was with, he got out of the cab, and he like picks the cab driver off. But I'm so mad. I don't know. I'm like, I just want to piss off this cab driver.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And so I don't know what told me, but I just walked over, and the cab was still on. I opened the door. I adjusted the seat, and I took it out of like park, and I drove off in the cab.
Oh, my God. You stole a cab.
Yeah, I did. I literally drove off in a cab, and it was
Oh,
right.
my God.
Do you remember where Two Boots in that UCB East used to be
No.
in the East Village? This is like off.
I've only been here for 2 years.
Oh,
though.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I think they shut down before that. This
Yeah.
is Two Boots. That's like in the East Village on like this is like 3rd Ave and
Okay.
like 5th or
I think
6th.
Two Boots is still down there.
It is Two
Yeah,
Boots,
yeah.
but the UCB isn't.
Oh, yeah. The
there
UCB
anymore.
left after COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm like, I'm gonna get back to Astoria in my head, but I was like, you don't know how to get back to Astoria.
Especially from there.
No, I didn't know how. I
Do
don't
you know
live
how
here
far
6
north
months.
you'd have to go
Yeah,
first?
well, you know, when a cop later told me, he's like, what you do is you turn, then you get up 2nd Ave and you just go up, or you
Yeah,
get on
straight
Frederick
up. Yeah,
Douglass.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, thank you, sir. But I just like pulled.
So you're in the cab and you're like, I'm just going to go home.
Yeah, but I didn't know how, so I just like I turned like 2 corners. I didn't know where I was going, and I just walked out and like kept it in park. And then I walked back to the scene of the crime, and all these cops are there, and this guy's there, and the cops are like, "Did you drive that cab?" I was like, "No." "You sure you didn't drive it?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "We've seen people said that they
You've
witnessed
gotten
you."
the cab and drove it.
And I was like, "Did you drive it?" And I was like, "A little bit," you know.
A little bit.
And yeah, he's like, the cop, they laughed, but they told me, we have to arrest you.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing, not the crazy thing, I mean, it's a sad thing now. That was not my first time being arrested. I've been
Okay.
arrested 2 times before that.
In Dallas? Yeah.
Both were for public intoxication.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like one of them, I don't remember. It was blackout, woke up in jail. I just heard just like, you know, like whatever. I was just a drunken mess at a bar. It was after this one Mexican singer's concert, and I was like, that's embarrassing.
I'm embarrassed.
I'm embarrassed. And then the second time, I was actually, a friend was too drunk to drive home, and I got out of the car even though I was drunk and was walking home. And the cops pulled over, and they're like, "Whoa, where do you live?" I'm like, I'm like 10
looking
minutes
at
here.
it, yeah.
Like, I'm 10 minutes. You all can't. They're like, well, no, we're going to take you to jail. Because it was, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been when the All-Star Weekend was in Dallas
Okay.
because that's when the new stadium in Arlington was. I don't remember if it was Super Bowl weekend or All-Star Weekend, but either way, it was like just like
They were like, you can't.
It was like zero tolerance.
Yeah.
And so you're just throwing people back
That
and
had
asking
I
questions.
had that. I remember I left Gentleman's Club in Jacksonville when I was in a relapse bender, and I went with my friend for his birthday, and I drove there, but I got blackout, and I was like, there's no way I'm driving home, because at this point I had a DUI, and I was like, I'm not driving home. So I remember leaving there and walking down I-95. Newsflash, ladies and gentlemen, you're not allowed to walk on the interstate as a pedestrian. The interstate is just for cars.
Only cars.
Only cars.
Only cars.
That's why they don't have traffic lights on the interstate.
Exactly.
And cops pulled over and they go, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Same thing, though. I was like, I'm just, I'm literally another exit up. Like, it's a mile. Like, give me a chance. I just want to get home. They were like, absolutely not. Like, you're coming with us. And I was like, guys, I just don't have my cell phone. Like, I have cash on me. Like, I can get a cab. Yeah. So actually, to their credit, this is the epitome of white privilege. They drove me to a gas station and called a cab for me.
Yeah, that didn't happen to me.
I was like, but I say that, but I was like, I've also had cops pull guns on me too. Like, I've also done that.
I've done my shit.
So you get arrested twice in Dallas just for the little and public intoxication. But now are they charging you on grand theft auto, or what are they charging you on?
They gave me, the charge was unauthorized use of a motorized vehicle.
Oh, skated.
Yeah.
Skated.
Thank goodness they didn't check my blood alcohol level.
Oh my God.
Not knowing, and I had to go to the hospital because I had some bruises on me from when the guy pushed me.
Yeah.
And they didn't check my alcohol level at all. That's so crazy.
Sometimes things happen and there's so much going on that the officers, I don't know if it's that they're like, oh, this person's going through a lot, like there's a lot happening here, so we're just gonna let them skate.
Yeah.
Or if they're just ignorant to the idea, like, because so much has happened. Like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's chicken or the egg, though, because I've had it before where I remember the second DUI I got, I didn't have insurance, and in the state of Florida, you have to have insurance. Right. And I didn't have insurance, and I think at the time I had a suspended license because I didn't have insurance. But because of everything that it was in the middle of a hurricane, and I was in my car, but it was parked. Mm-hmm. So and I was like yelling at the Walmart manager. Then I went back to my car. I talk about all this in the one man show.
I love this.
It's also Florida, but I say all that to say, like, there was so much going on that the cop didn't ask for my ID, didn't ask for my license. They didn't ask for anything. They just arrested me. And then when we got to the station, they used my license to put in all my stuff in the computer, but they didn't run it to see if it was valid. You know what I mean? Because they just arrested me,
they're
and
not
then
searching for anything.
Yeah, and they're not looking for it. And because I'm not they didn't obviously running your insurance and all that they do at the scene. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in booking with a different officer, so he's just inputting my information. He doesn't give a shit about any of that. So I ended up not getting tagged for the suspended license or the no insurance, and I was like, oh, you motherfuckers. Yeah, you gotta go
easy. Well, I think that's kind of I'm not similar, but also because I have a Texas license.
Yeah. So
when the judge saw me, once they released me from jail, he just was like, oh, will you come back to New York to for trial, or just to hear your whenever the court when the court date happens. I was like, oh, I'll fly back definitely for that. So they didn't think I lived in New York.
Oh.
And so when I showed up this happened in late December. When I showed up in March for the court.
It's always 3 or 4 months out.
Yeah, it's get your shit together. Jeez. And I show up. The judge was very thankful and thought it was very nice that I would fly back to New York City.
That's hilarious.
And I think what also helped was the people that were getting sentenced before me. It was a lot of women. And they were the judge was giving out thousands, so and so many hundreds of hours of community service.
Yeah.
Because these women had got pulled over for drunk driving.
Yeah.
And they just didn't test my blood alcohol level. Yeah, and but a lot of
So
them
what
are
did you
anger
get?
management. It was just he put me out. I got probation for 6 months.
Yeah.
And that apparently he's like, yeah, as long as you don't get in trouble in New York City ever again, like that's basically like how a good way
But
to
you
be.
did end up getting in trouble in New York City.
I did years later once I wasn't on probation.
Yeah.
And that was just because I was I don't remember much of this either, but I was coming home.
Oh, we were about to have a
I
huge
know,
technical
no.
difficulty. That screen went black, and I was like,
Oh no! I don't know what bar I was coming home from, but
You're not driving when you're in the city. Other than the cab, you're not driving, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I had a car for like the first 3 or 4 years, and I had my dad take
Really?
it back. Yeah, because I was
I
like,
couldn't imagine having a
people
car. That was like my favorite
always
thing
wanted
about.
me to drive them to places.
Oh yeah, my biggest thing when we Savannah and my ex moved here was like we get to sell our cars and
yeah.
don't have to because I have 2 DUIs, so my insurance was fucking nuts.
I imagine.
I was like, I can just not carry it
Yeah.
like ever again.
So great.
It's
But
such a
yeah,
relief.
but then I was just like drunkenly getting on the train and
Yeah.
finding out how to get home that way. But one late night, I went to Burger King. This is when I lived in Astoria, and I bought.
I know that
food.
Burger King.
You know the one right by
Yeah.
the
Right by the yellow
police
line. Yeah,
station.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's off the Astoria Boulevard stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So for some reason, I don't know. They said that I went into the police station before that and said something about the cops, and then I left and I got Burger
Fuck
King.
you, pigs.
I don't really
Yeah.
know. I was blacked out. I don't know what I said. And then I went to go get food, and then I came out. The cops were talking shit to me, and I was like, you know what? Fuck you. And I threw Surprise at the cop.
No, you didn't.
I just threw it, and one of them, it was his first day, and he's like, I can arrest you. And they were like,
For
yeah.
assault,
Yeah,
technically.
they told them, they said, yeah. So they're like, yeah, go ahead. So this cop, that he's trying to get his first arrest, it's me.
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to do shit. So his friend's telling him, and I'm like, well, can I call my lawyer? And my lawyer is my friend who I've known for like 12
Which just
years.
happens to be a lawyer.
Yeah, and she's like always, she goes, don't you say shit. You know
Yeah,
the deal. And I
never.
called her, and she was telling the cop, like, basically, she had to do the rundown for him because he didn't know shit.
Wow.
And it's so funny. I don't know if it's that funny, but by the time I got to like, actual jail and I'm in the cell with everyone,
Yeah.
like it was just like, all right, let me go in, sit down, shut up.
I tell
and,
people this all the time. The
like,
first time you
yeah.
get arrested, it's terrifying, and you're like, my life is over. For me, by like the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, all right, come on, guys, like
Can we
let's
just
go.
get this done?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
over I got what, 8 hours, 9 hours? Can I do this?
There's
yeah.
so many times like I've been at tailgates or just parties or something, and not so many, but a few times where people are getting arrested and they're like sobbing, grown men like crying.
And I'm like, bro, it's gonna be fine.
I'm like, like once they 9 times out of 10, once the cuffs go on,
yeah.
it's over. Like they almost legally have to take you in because
Yeah.
now you're in their custody.
Yeah, they gave you all these warnings. And
Yeah.
then you pushed it. Now it's done. Yeah.
Especially once you're in the back of the car. Now I've heard people be like, that's not true. Like I got put in the back of the car and then they let me go. I go, how old were you? 17. Yeah, because they wanted to scare you.
Yeah.
But when you're a grown adult, if they put you in the back of the car, 9 times out of 10, you're going to jail.
Yep.
And that's something, again, what we were talking about earlier. It's another thing where I thought it was hilarious and I tried to make it a bit, but people are just like, they have no reference point. I'd be like, oh yeah, every CO I would run into, that's correctional officer for the uninitiated, they'd always be like, oh, if I was out on the street, I'd have just let you go. And I'm like, well, where the fuck were you then?
I
Where
was
were
like,
you?
Yeah, you don't work that shift,
Yeah,
do you?
that's why
not your
you're in
watch.
here with
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah.
it's because people freak out. And it's just like you said, it's like, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just sit there.
Yeah.
Don't
Whatever,
answer any
stupid
questions. Don't say anything. Just sit there.
Oh, you know what they did though on that arrest? So first of all, they have me. I'm right by the precinct, so I'm there locked
You're
up.
there, yeah.
They eat my Burger King, and then they go in my bag and they start reading my joke notebook. And
In front of you?
Yes.
Ah.
And it was like roast. And it was.
This is what you get for throwing fries.
That's what I
at
get for
him.
throwing fries
Yeah.
at a cop. But I was supposed to. This was not too long after. This is when Matt Moran had first started Comedy Fight Club.
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, I did the
Friend
first
of the show.
Yeah, I did the first or second one, and I did a roast battle against Davidson Boswell.
Okay.
And so they're just reading. They're like, "Who's Davidson Boswell?" I was like, "Oh, that fucker." And I love Davidson. I've known him since he moved to the city. But they just are reading these.
So you had gotten back into comedy at this point.
I was, yeah, because what happened was,
Yeah, let's get
the
back on
arrest
that.
happened, and
The
then
first one?
the first
Okay.
one, and I'm living my New York City life, but I find myself
I love how you keep that. I was living my
New York City life, hidden bottom. It's the dream. But during all this time, I'm noticing I'm writing things down.
Yeah.
And
you're
I'm
still,
wanting
so you're still
to
doing
still.
it, yeah.
So I went to the creek, and it was when the creek was like the creek,
Yeah,
like
the
it was
creek in
that
the cave,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just like went to an open mic there, and I thought, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I want to do this. And then from that point, like I was there pretty much every day. Like, and it was one of those, like, people, like, this is the thing about some of these open mics. The list is full because everyone signed up online. Like, the thing about the Creek is if you went, most likely you got to get up.
Yeah.
And you, like,
it's kind of the same thing with the pair now, where it's like, you might be like 20th, but you'll get up.
You'll get up. And I mean, I would go sometimes right after work. So I'd go be there for the 6 p.m. mic, do that. And then, someone would say, hey, there's an 8 p.m. mic somewhere else. Cool, go there. But Fridays, it was fun because, I do the 6 p.m. mic and the 8 p.m. mic at the Creek and just, like, drink after, which was fun. But then there was also the 11 p.m. mics there. And you'd get there at 11. I wouldn't go up till, like, 1 a.m. for, like, 3 minutes. And I'm like, no, that shit, like, made me, you that's how you learn to, like, deal with the uncomfortableness and, like, the emptiness of a room and how to, like, really figure out shit because you got 3 minutes. And so it was just a lot of that. And I wouldn't, like, get too drunk, like, at those because sometimes I would drive there because it was, like, in Long Island City. So from Astoria there, it's like a quick ride home for me. Like, I drive home.
Long Island City is Astoria.
Yeah, so it's just like
my phone always gets confused because I hang out in Astoria a lot now, and it's always like Long Island City.
Northern Boulevard.
Like, wait, what?
Bullshit. Yeah. So it just, and after a while, it was just like those people became my friends. All the comics became my friends. I just that was my thing, and I was doing that more often. And then,
so you were in a valley at this point because you're not drinking. You're not overly drinking because you're doing comedy,
right? And it was more like I'd get drunk occasionally, but not too much. But then it just happens.
Are you still doing the advertising during the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like just my boss. I had moved to a different agency at this point, and my new boss was like a fan of comedy, so he was just like, show up, and my job was very simple, what I was doing at the time. So he's like, just don't ruin this, and you'll be out by 5:30 every day.
Wow.
And do your mics. And he knew, and he certain times. Like,
that's how my beverage director's super into comedy. So like I'm always just like, hey man, I got a show, and he's always like, all right, we'll find someone to cover your shift.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. And I would get away with that, but it just became a point, I guess, where like these two, like the things I did at both of them, the drinking just kind of merged, and I just was, drinking more. I was going to brunch, New York City brunch. Listen, bottomless. Ooh, I like how we're like bottomless. That's just like
it's on every single sign, and they give you. So they do bottomless mimosas and stuff in Florida, but you can just hang out all day. And it's funny because in New York they give you a time limit, 90 minutes.
Don't challenge me, baby.
It's a fucking challenge. It's a challenge, dude. They go 90 minutes, bottomless mimosas.
I'll have 2. Bring me 2 more in like 5 minutes.
Challenge accepted. Let's see what we can get done.
Oh
here.
my gosh, yeah, it's. I do miss that.
When did so when did you how much long? Because how long have you been sober?
It'll be 2 years in June.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what was the June what?
June 26th.
Oh, okay.
Pride weekend. I can tell you about that if you want.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. It was like, when did it culminate into where you were like, oh, I got to figure this out?
It kind of like it's. I've heard that people have numerous bottoms.
Yeah, I had like
numerous.
15
Yeah,
of them,
and like this was one that I didn't really think about, but in retrospect, like all my relationships have ended because of alcohol, because of my drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are other issues that I worked on in therapy, but the main culprit, if I'm taking accountability for the things I've done, it's my drinking.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm. When you were sharing your breakup with me, or your story about your breakup in some sense before we started recording, I was like, oh, mine's kind of similar.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking shit now.
No, it was just like you're sharing that, so I appreciate you sharing that. And I was like, no, that's part of the reason I'm sober is I had this partner at the time. We were together almost 5 years, but
so you were out at this point.
Yeah, I was out. Like it's part of the reason alcohol like helped me like start hooking up with women.
Yeah,
like start dating. That's part of it.
That's a big thing about it. Like I mean. I demonize it a lot on the show just because of the things that it's done to me and to people I know and the people it's taken from me. But alcohol as a social lubricant, as like it can be. And I mean, I know I talked about this with Joe. I've talked about this with numerous guests where I hate it. Like I was straight edge through most of high school. And then when I started drinking, I was like, yeah, I understand. Like this makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. And it lowered my inhibitions to where I was able to like work up that
yourself,
courage, face myself. And, first time I came out, I was drunk on the phone with my mom. And I called her drunk in front of this bar in Astoria, and she already knew. But it was, I had done like,
but now you know.
I know, and I'm like, I'm gonna say it out loud, and it was really nice to do that. But that was brought to me by Fireball. Fireball helped me come out to my mom.
So Fireball made you gay, not Tito's.
Well, it gave me the courage to say it, but Tito's made me eat pussy. Tito's made me want to eat pussy. I was like, man, it's gluten free. I'm gluten free. So
for you.
It so is. And I I meet this person who eventually I'm thinking is going to be my life partner, and we move.
It's always a kick in the
dick.
dick.
Yeah, we move in together during COVID. We're under a domestic partnership. We adopt a dog together. And, I went to do some Pride show in some random place off the Metro North. And then I came home one day and she wasn't there. And I was realizing we'd had some problems for a good couple of weeks, but it was one of those, I think counseling will fix this. Whatever, this will work out because it always does.
Yeah.
And I was kind of coming out, I think probably a week before that I had come out of a bender. In that June I was in a bender.
Yeah.
That it was just at this
was it
point,
for all of June?
For most of June.
Yeah.
It was definitely.
It's interesting when we say bender versus when normal people say bender. They go, I went on a bender this weekend. I go,
No. Benders are weeks, buddy.
yeah. I was 3 days. Rookie.
Yeah, exactly. I was I would spend 3 days in bed after.
Yeah.
Not able to move.
I would spend 3 days revving up for what we're really going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would it was exactly. No, there'd be 3 days recovery, and even then I would just get back and it would just start again. It's you reset. But it was getting bad. It was bad. I mean, it was just horrible. Yeah. And then,
I call it a bottom, not a top.
That's exactly. And I was I did really good there. I made good decisions. But there was I come home and she's not there. The dog's not there. I notice some of her stuff is there. And it's kind of in the back of my head,
well, because some of her stuff is still there, so you're kind of
we live together.
Yeah,
and
so you're wait,
where is she? I don't know where she is, where the dog is, or anything, and it hits me.
Was there enough stuff gone where you were
no, but
yeah.
So I didn't. It was still kind of the gray, but so I tell my friends, and they had a house upstate, so they're we're gonna come get you because they were in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they just get. So I grabbed some clothes because I was she probably needs space. She'll be back. I don't know what's going on, but.
Yeah.
In my head, I come to the realization, on the way
back. Are you texting her?
I am.
Calling
She's not
her?
responding. She just says, the dog's with me. He's fine. That's all I hear.
Okay.
So, I don't know. We get to my friend's place upstate there in Monroe, New York, and that's an hour from here. So we're there, and I just know something in my head is she's not.
She's not coming.
She's
back.
not. I don't know what's happening, but this isn't good. And my friend's do you want some wine right now? And I don't know. It's the first time in my life there was a little voice that said, "Hey, you don't want to drink right now."
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I know exactly where I was standing. I remember my friend telling me this. I remember my friend opening the fridge, but I remember that voice being "Hey, you do not want to drink right now. You want to feel whatever this is that's happening."
Yeah.
That is the same voice that used to be you could stay out, open your tab, drink, get another shot,
get another shot,
get another shot.
Yeah.
She'll know she's talking. She can go home. Fuck her. You got friends here. That's the first
This is
time.
New York City. I can find a way home.
Exactly. It was you'll be fine. You're good. And the only people that understand this voice, I feel other people who are sober.
Yeah. I say it all the time. I say every year, I don't post a lot about my sobriety online just because when I first got sober, I was doing all this Facebook and Instagram shit. And my sponsor was if you relapse, everyone's going to say AA doesn't work because it didn't work for you.
Right, exactly.
And so I only post when I do a sappy sober post, 90% of the time it's for my chips, my year chips.
Yeah, that's the only time I'm going to probably post again.
But I always
did
say
for
this
a little bit at the beginning.
I say this, I've said this for years. It was a movie line of all things, and I've always said it. And it means, I think, more to alcoholics and people in sobriety than anybody else. But lessons not learned in blood are soon forgotten.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. That little voice being let's get fucked up. When that voice turns and goes hey, I think we've had enough.
Yeah.
That's when you're oh, it's over, man.
Yeah.
I'm done.
And I still didn't know, though.
Yeah.
I still didn't. I listened to something. I'll still remember it, but I still remember it because you always remember that moment.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then finally, I found out later that she was leaving me that Monday.
How did you find out?
From
officially?
a leasing agent. She just didn't renew the lease, and I got an email from a lease. So it was all very traumatic.
Oh, so the lease was coming to an end.
And we were supposed to re-sign, and then the leasing agent was "Hey, so and so's not going to renew the lease. We want to know what your plans are." I'm what?
How long did you have?
I had 2-3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
But
So
still,
this wasn't a day of thing.
And then,
Jesus Christ.
and my friend's this is already 2 days, and I was I don't want to drink, because I knew that was part of my thing too. I was something was telling me, hey, don't drink right now. You want to feel all of this. You want to remember, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years when you're over this, or 10 years, you got through this breakup part, not drinking. So I thought in my head, this happened in June 26th. I thought maybe by August I would have wine or something.
Yeah, you'd be back.
Yeah, and so it got to about I got the dog back, which was great. And then,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And I'll explain because he's like one of my sober rocks. It's very sweet. But 25 days in, because I was white knuckling it at this point, and 25 days in, I was.
Did you know about AA and meetings and all that?
So I did.
It's shocking how many people don't.
But I hadn't really. It hadn't hit. Like I've always known about it, and I didn't know. And so I'll get to AA because I fucking love AA. Don't even get me started with that. But I haven't done the steps yet, but I love it. So it hadn't really hit, and it's like I needed like some time like away from alcohol to start like having that fog clear and like really start thinking and like facing myself. And like 25 days in, I was like, man, maybe I want to go to a meeting. Like, if I'm like taking responsibility, all my relationships that my, dating, whatever, anything that's gone wrong is because like my stuff is my drinking. Mm-hmm. So maybe I want to take a look at this. Maybe I'll go to a meeting. So I hit up one sober comic who she said she doesn't really go to meetings, but she's like, I love the Serenity Prayer, and if you're thinking of checking it out, I definitely recommend it. So she was very much like, yeah, you should do it. If you think if you think you should be there, you should.
Yeah.
And then I hit up another.
Nickel for every time. People are like, I don't know. I think I have a problem. I go, if you're asking me,
you should be there.
I mean, Joe says the same thing.
They don't like hearing that.
Emma says that. Like I've had a lot of sober comics on the show, and they all say the same thing. Like if you're reaching out to me, you seriously have a problem.
Yeah. And because I had done that years before with another sober comic, and he was like, well, he goes, I think you have a problem. Yeah. And I was like, whatever. And then I,
whatever, dude.
Whatever, and has never talked to him again.
As we said before, I can find my own way home,
that's right.
motherfucker.
Tito's has not left me. But I hit up another comic, and she happened to be qualifying the next day, that Thursday.
Yeah.
And she's like, come to this meeting with me. And I met her up there, and I went in that room, and
did you cry?
I didn't cry. I mean, I cry when I start talking about sobriety. It's like hard because I'm so grateful for it. I cry every day. Once I hit 72 days, every day I cry, and it's like it's just like.
I get so well. I'm bipolar because and this is something I've obviously learned through my experience. But the alcohol is merely a symptom. Like I'm fucked up.
Oh yeah,
and so
figuring out our stuff.
Yeah, and so it's. Like my emotions are so, and I'm also bipolar, like diagnosed bipolar too. So it's like so wild swings and stuff like that. And it's crazy because I remember I was undiagnosed for a very long time with my bipolar. It wasn't until I went to rehab and I sat down with doctors and neurologists and stuff that they diagnosed me. But it's crazy because I remember the first meeting I went to, and I had no plans on getting sober. I was like 21 years old, and I like started sobbing.
It's a lot.
Because I was like, oh, I don't have to feel like this anymore. And I immediately went out and drank like after the meeting. But I remember,
and they'll still let you back in.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When someone says, you could be drunk at AA, I was like, what?
Yeah. It's also a slippery slope because once you learn that, sometimes you show up drunk at meetings all the time.
Yeah, but that happens. But I think the whole idea of, I thought it was, oh, you'll never drink again. Like, it's done. But it's like a sentence. It's like, oh, it's officially shut down.
It's
and
over.
They're like, but the thing is, they would say is like, it's people relapse. Yeah. And then I would, within time, hear people saying like, their relapse is what saved them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Saying like, me relapsing really helped me understand my sobriety. That forgiveness, that like, knowing, hey, you can make a mistake and still come back here. It wasn't like all or nothing.
It's one of the hardest things to wrap people for me, it was the hardest thing to wrap my mind around because when I went to rehab, I treated it like sports, and I was like, I'm going to fucking do this. I'm going to do this.
That mentality.
Yeah, and then I got out, and then fast forward a year, and I relapsed. Literally like a few weeks before my 1 year chip, my very first 1 year chip, I relapsed. And I remember thinking my pride, my ego, all of it wouldn't let me go back in the rooms because I was like, I failed. I literally thought it was a test, a pass-fail test. I was like, I failed, so I'm just not sober. Like, I'm just never going to do it again.
And it's not like that. It's
not
like,
at all.
No, you're okay.
They're like, no, come on.
If you like,
just fucking get in here,
get
dude.
in here. No, it's all right. Yeah.
Stupid, silly so-and-so.
The person with the least amount of sobriety is the most important in the room. And it's like, and now when I see people going in like 14 days, I was like, yeah, dude, you're doing it. Like, I was like, you have no idea how good things are going to get. It's just,
it's nuts.
It's so crazy. But when I left that first meet, like, as soon as that meeting was done, after they said the Serenity Prayer the first time we finished, and keep coming back, and then I met some people, and the feeling, like the weight, the burden that left my shoulders, and it was like, I was supposed to be here. I need to be here. This is it. And I would sign in at 7 a.m. for like Zoom meetings.
Oh
like
yeah,
that, and
because
I
you
was-
guys were doing COVID. And
Yeah,
everything,
and so I was just going in, and I would
We
go to
didn't
the
have
ones I
that.
could.
We didn't have that in Florida.
Oh wow! Oh, of course not.
We
They
didn't
didn't have
have-
COVID
no,
in
COVID, yeah,
Florida.
we didn't.
That's not real in
I'm
Florida.
kidding. We were shut down for 3 months. All right, we were shut down.
And I would just like hop to different meetings, and I eventually I posted like my 90 days, and then I posted like 6 months, and I posted.
It is helpful though.
It is, but I don't post like some people are like every week. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Bro,
and that's the thing that bothers me
and
because
I'm
I'm like,
like,
hey,
"Bro,
if you got to
God."
toot it like this, that means your horn's not working.
You're doing
dude.
it for
Like,
the
yeah.
likes, and
Yeah.
then I posted. I think the last time I posted was maybe when I hit like 500 days or something like that, or I think when I hit that, or 20 months or something, and then I was like, Veronica, don't. Well, also I've learned to take things more personal. My sobriety is like one of my most like. It is
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things to me.
It
like,
is the most.
It's like
for me, it's the
what
most
is the
important.
thing they said, like, and this is true. When you focus on your sobriety, everything else falls in place.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, the other big thing that they say a lot is if you put things in front of your sobriety, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose all of it. You're
Yeah.
gonna whatever you put in front of your sobriety, you're going to lose.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
and that's I tell people that all the time. It's funny because comedy is the second. I always say comedy is the second most important thing in my
Yeah, my
life.
sobriety is so important.
And they go, "What's the first?" And I say sobriety because
It is.
without sobriety, I don't have comedy.
I don't have anything.
And it's so crazy because my bottom, I hit so many bottoms, and it's weird because so you hit that bottom and then started going to meetings, and then that was it. You were good
Yeah, as of now, like
Yeah.
like
Which
I've
is
been
awesome.
sober thus far.
because
Like,
I've
just for today. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
absolutely.
I don't know about like that's the thing. People don't get that. I'm like, they go, how do you like? Oh, are you done for good? Are you done drinking for good?
Shit,
and I was
I'm
like,
done
I
for
don't,
right this
I don't
right
know.
this second.
I
I'm
don't
done.
know. I go. The thing is like, and this is why I said I'll bring up my dog later. So. My ex told me when I used to leave the house or when I would drink, she goes, when you drink, Colin gets very scared.
Yeah.
That's my dog. I'm very cute. I love my dog so much. He gets scared.
When we drink, everyone gets
Everywhere.
scared.
They
What's
better-
up?
Little 5'2" me. Yeah, people would get scared. I'm driving cabs. Oh, what a, gosh. And so I don't know why that thing really stuck with me.
Yeah.
And like when I come home, like, or when I leave the house, one of the things I say out loud to him, it's like, hey, I'm leaving, buddy. I love you. I'm not going to drink. And it's like, am I saying it for him? Am I saying it for me?
Who cares?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I come home at the end of the night and I open it and it's so happy to see me
I miss my
he
dog.
realizes that I'm not drinking. It always makes me cry a little bit. He realizes that I'm not drunk. That
Yeah.
fucking gets me every day.
That's awesome.
And that's what keeps me fucking sober. So when people are like, you're not going to drink again, I was like, tonight, I got to get home to my dog, put my head on my pillow, and think, what am I grateful for today?
Yeah.
And I didn't drink. And like, that's
It's-
it. Oh, every time. See, every day I cry, man. Every day.
Yeah, me too. So much, but it's fascinating to me because I say this and I'm very not envious. That's the wrong word, but I'm very happy for you that you didn't have
Thank
to
you.
experience this. Is the fact that I would relapse, and then when I learned I could go back to the rooms. I've had the same sponsor now for a very long time. Shout out to Kurt, but I remember I would call him and I'd be like, I fucked up, man. I fucked up, and I'm emotional. I'm sobbing, and he'd be like, "No problem. Don't even
okay.
worry about it.
It's okay.
We're gonna be all right."
Yeah.
And I'd go meet him at a meeting, and we'd do steps 1, 2, and 3 again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be sobbing, and I'd be on my knees, and I would mean it. I would mean it
Yeah.
in the moment, and then
Because
3
you have
weeks,
to believe it.
But what I'm saying is, then like 3 weeks later, at Neverland, I would lose it. And I would get so frustrated with myself because I'd be like, how can I be in the moment meaning it so much that I do not want to do this again? I don't want to feel like this anymore. And then literally within 3 weeks, I'd be drunk again.
Mm-hmm.
And we speculated all sorts of things, like because of all my concussions from football and my TBI, my traumatic brain injuries and stuff, were like maybe you just, because it says in the book that not everyone, even if you work, some people just can't
Nope.
get it.
Sometimes, yeah.
And
it takes,
he honestly thought, and he's been sober a very long time, and he's in it. Like he's in it. And he and I talked about it. He goes, this is after I got sober the last time and stayed sober, but he told me, he was like, I was terrified that you were one of those people that just couldn't get sober. And I remember when he told me that, because I'll get emotional on talking about it. When he told me that, I was like, oh my God, I was like this close to being that very, like in that slim. I knew I was special. I was so close to being the special. But it always
right
left
about me. Oh.
But it's fascinating because what ended up happening was I just hadn't hit the sufficient bottom.
Yeah.
And since then I had hit that bottom, and now I've been sober. I'll be at 5 years in May.
Yay.
You know, if I make it. But the crazy thing about it was hindsight's 2020. I'm like, oh, it wasn't all this like existential crisis. It wasn't all these exigent circumstances. I just hadn't hit a bottom.
Nope. Yeah.
And some part of me gets kind of frustrated when I see people who come in and they go, oh, yeah, you know, I've been sober 10 years because 10 years ago I called my ex-wife a bitch at a family barbecue and I realized I needed to get sober. And I'm like, why couldn't I have done that?
I was like, where's my little thing where, you know, that first time I got drunk in college and I was like, hey, you know what? You may want to stop this before you start. This is going to be a problem. Look at your family line. Look at how many of your uncles have died from this.
Yeah, and then we turn around at the meeting and we're like, I guess it took what it took.
I know. Well, everyone has their story. You know?
Speaking of, I know we got to get out of here, but I wanted to ask you, the last story I did want to ask you about was the Alphabet City.
Oh, that was one of my. This all goes into like my first like few months in New York
This
City.
is living. The title's gonna have to be "Living My New York Life."
This is. I love it. I sound like such a fucking cliche. I don't care. Whatever. I can't control what people think of me. Hey, baby.
We're gonna try our hardest. But.
Yeah, that's true. I met this one friend, like one of my random jobs in New York. Like when I first got here, I found on Craigslist just like being just working like for the sound, like doing the sound for like this movie. Like I just had to like hold the boom,
the grip,
like a grip job. And I met this other guy who he was in film school at the time. So we ended up being like, I was probably only like 4 or 5 years older than him. So he was like, oh, we got to hang out because you know anyone. He's from Bronx, grew up in New York City. So.
And you didn't know anybody.
No, I didn't know anybody. So we hung out one night, we met up, and then we just kept walking the East Village. And I was like, what happens with these numbers then? And he's like, oh, Alphabet City. I was like, what? And he's like, oh, the streets, like Avenue A, Avenue B. I was like, oh, okay. So we go there and we randomly like walk into a bar. And there's a How I Met Your Mother trivia going on because the first DVD for the season had come out. This was the first time they were out on DVD.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So playing that, winning free drinks, and then eventually the woman working promotion starts talking to us and giving us free drinks. And I had just like accepted, like I got my offer letter and accepted my job at this big agency. Yeah. So everything was good. Like money was just, I'm like, oh, I finally have cash. Like we can go out and I'm paying for this. I was like, open my tab. Let's do this. We're sitting there. Open my tab. Baby. There we go. This all comes together so well. I'm a storyteller. So tabs open. We're drinking. That's right. And this random older white woman comes over and she's like, y'all having a great time. I was like, yeah, sit down. Have a drink with us. Can I buy you a drink? I was drinking Espolòn because I don't drink Patron. That's right. I was getting Espolòn for everyone. We're drinking shots. We're having just a good time. Next thing you know, this woman's like, do you want to come with me to the bathroom? It's like, I sure do. Let's do this. So we're doing coke in the bathroom.
You knew what she was up
to.
Oh,
I knew. As soon as she said, do you want to go to the bathroom with me? I was like, oh, I know what she's doing. Yeah, I'm in. Let's party. So I'm going in just like doing rails. And then my friend, he's like, wait, are you doing coke? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, hook it up. And then he's like, I want to do rails. And I was like, hey, can you give my friend some? She's like, yeah, but don't do the whole thing. And I was like, what'd you do? He goes, I went in that bathroom and I did rails. He was like, so he's just doing all this coke and we're there. And like eventually the bartender is having such a good time. Everyone's just drinking.
Yeah.
This fucking promotions woman's like, do you want to see my tits? I'm like, you bet your ass I do. Didn't know I was gay yet. Spoiler
you really
alert.
like tits.
I was like, sure, I support women. So she just kept wanting to show them to me. And I was like, I do want to see them. I did coke off her tits because it's rude not to. It's rude not to. And then eventually the bartender's like, the bar's shut down, but I'm keeping this open for everyone. So we're drinking. So we stayed there. And then finally we're like, oh, fuck, we should probably all go home.
Yeah.
It's like 7 a.m.
Oh,
so
God.
we get out of the bar and I was like, we
The
both
sun's
go,
out.
the sun's out. So I get a cab for us, and I'm staying at I'm living in the Bronx at this time.
Yeah.
I lived like in every borough except for Staten Island, but
which we don't count.
Right? So we get.
So
up to
you
the
lived
Bronx.
in every borough.
I've lived in every borough. That's right. And my friend and we had plans to get food that day, so I was like, oh, you can just hang at my place. So we both like napped a little bit. We couldn't really
nap.
sleep.
Yeah.
Because fucking
It's that
coke.
jittery thing where you close your eyes and
I
you're
was
just like,
nah,
grinding your teeth.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're still awake, so let's just get these errands done. And I had to go shopping, so I was like, you want to come with me? Yes, so we went. And then we're there, and we're sitting in the car. We're sitting in my Honda Fit, and we're like supposed to go shopping, and we're just sitting there, car's parked. And he goes, man, I still have that Coke. I was like,
he kept
what?
it?
He goes, yeah, that woman's like, you could just have it. So I was like, thank you, ma'am. So he had it, and he's like, do you want to just do it? And I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. So we needed a flat surface.
Yeah.
And I had a box of tampons in the back.
So you were doing.
So I've got the tampon box, and I laid it out. And what absolutely sucked is
Not the fact you're doing cocaine off tampon
not
box.
that is I snorted it with my fucking $1 bill. I get this, and then I look up, and there's a homeless man staring at us. He was about to come to the car, ask for money, and he goes and walks away.
Oh, are you serious?
Because my friend and I, who he's now sober, we laugh about this because, like, you remember that time? And he goes, man.
A homeless man straight.
He saw me doing cocaine off a tampon box in my Honda Fit in the Bronx. And
he was like, absolutely not.
He's like, I'm better than this.
Wow.
He kept walking.
Well, that's a great place to leave it.
Right? Yeah.
Plug everything one more time. Let
All right.
everybody know.
Yeah, please find me on Instagram, Veronica Garza, handle at Veros_got_jokes. Find me on Twitter, at Veros_broke, Veronica Garza comedy. Just find me. Just look up. If you just type in Veronica Garza comedian, New York City, I'll pop up. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This
Thanks
was a
for having me.
blast.
This was so fun.
At Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. One Man Show will premiere on May 31st on Patreon, so make sure you subscribe to check that out, and we'll talk to y'all next week.